As more workers move towards remote work, productivity is more important than ever. And while streamlined logins sound like they only save marginal amounts of time, an extra couple of minutes every day, it adds up. That's why Microsoft and Cisco are teaming up to bring Microsoft 365 integrations for Webex. So today I'm speaking to Jimmy Lin, Product Marketing Manager on the Azure Active Directory team, and Mike Ammerlaan, Director of Product Marketing on the Microsoft 365 team, to learn more about how Microsoft 365 and Cisco solutions are going to work together. So Mike, with the acceleration of remote work, what are some of the trends that Microsoft is seeing in this new way of working?
Yeah, we're really seeing some significant changes in how people are approaching work. Of course, the amount of time that people spend in meetings is up quite considerably as they connect to their colleagues around the world. You know, we had, for example, days where you'd have about 500 million meeting minutes in a particular day that we would record through Microsoft Teams. And as people have shifted, you see 4.1 billion or more meeting minutes in a particular day, just that much many more people coming together, having conversations, being online. Also, the use of video is increasing quite considerably as well. So on average, your meeting has twice as much video in it as they did before. In part, that's because people are using video to connect to their team. In fact, people are scheduling meetings not just for, productivity purposes, if you will, but just to, connect to their colleagues, find out how their weekend was, find out the kinds of things that they're doing. So, a lot of the things that we're seeing for meetings are, really kind of pulling together teams in this remote work situation. I think the other thing is that we see people are spending more time working. They start earlier in their day, maybe checking their messages, those kinds of things, and they end it longer in the day. And, more people are actually connecting on the weekend as well. So, nobody really maybe hopes for that kind of a trend, but of course, I think people have more diverse situations. Maybe they've got some remote learning that's happening at home that they need to also work on, with their kids, for example. And so people are needing this more flexibility in how they approach work, how they collaborate with their teammates, and how they pull things together. Now, of course, all the while, security has always been sort of top of mind for organizations. 51% of business leaders are speeding up the deployments of zero trust capabilities. They're improving their configuration environments. 82% of organizations plan on adding more security staff. As we have remote work, the diversity of different types of situations and devices that people are connecting into their work systems is increasing as well. And so finally, there's just this need to provide secure remote access to applications, and that's the number one challenge reported by security leaders, is just making sure that people can connect to the right systems. All the while, this entire remote work, culture change is going on as well. So a lot of things definitely happening.
Definitely a lot of things. Well, Jimmy, let's talk about what are some of the ways that identity and access management solutions like Azure Active Directory help enable this security that we need for remote work?
Yeah, sure. So we really think of identity as the center of security. The concept of the corporate network perimeter has really disappeared, and that really makes identity the control plane for security that could provide effective access control for all your users, digital resources, your applications, as well as visibility into your entire digital estate. And so the pandemic has only accelerated and highlighted this even more. And so that makes identity really critical for business success, as well as enabling secure remote work. And as kind of Mike mentioned, identity is on top of, or security is on top of mind for security leaders. It's an enabler for secure remote work, better employee productivity. It's also the foundation of a zero trust strategy. And so with zero trust, it's the concept of you can no longer assume that everything is behind the corporate firewall. And zero trust has these principles around verify explicitly, use least privilege access, and assume breach. And so getting identity right is really kind of that first step into any organization's zero trust strategy.
So tell me, Jimmy, so what type of customers are using Azure AD, and how big is your customer base for that?
Sure. So Azure AD is really built into every Microsoft Cloud service. It's the identity and access management for Azure, Office 365, Dynamics. It's part of our Microsoft 365 suite. And as mentioned, if you already have Office 365, you already have Azure Active Directory. So it's got tremendous penetration. To give a little bit of context, we have over 200,000 organizations using our premium Azure AD capabilities, and this includes our risk-based access control like conditional access, 345 million monthly active users, and we're processing over 30 billion authentications. And while Azure AD is kind of this identity and access management solution for Microsoft apps and services, customers are using it to secure and manage a whole host of other cloud apps, which includes the likes of Workday, ServiceNow, as well as kind of apps with Cisco, like Cisco Webex.
That's great, Jimmy. And so I know, both Cisco and Microsoft really try to focus on the user experience, and that's why we're coming together here. So can you give me some examples of how this integration is going to make the user experience easier?
Sure. So the first integration I'll talk about is just single sign-on. And people want to be able to easily access the apps they need quickly, especially in kind of this remote work situation. And so with the Azure AD and Cisco integration, you can use the same credentials you use to sign into all your Microsoft 365 apps, Teams, Outlook, even applications like Azure. And you could sign in alongside to Cisco Webex. So having different identity systems, logins, and passwords for every application can really hurt employee productivity. And so single sign-on can help save users times. And so we actually conducted a study with Forrester earlier this year, and Forrester estimates that by consolidating to a single identity and access management solution, providing one set of credentials for all your apps, your Microsoft apps, your Cisco apps, can actually save employees up to 10 minutes a week on average. And so that's almost 9 hours a year per employee. And so once you've got single sign-on set up, users really want to be able to easily discover and launch the applications that they use in a single destination. So with our integration between Azure AD and Cisco, admins can enable their employees to launch and discover all their apps in one place. So centralized app launching experiences like what we have within the My Apps portal or even the Office portal on office.com helps users really discover all the apps they need while being able to access them in a secure fashion. And then finally, I'll just mention one of the things that we're also enabling with these joint integrations is just better self-service experiences for users. And so within our My Apps portal, which as mentioned is kind of the central place where users can launch other apps, we've also enabled self-service options like managing security information, being able to request access to additional applications, but also empowering end users to reset their passwords. And so that means no more calls to the IT help desk to ask for resetting passwords, which could be a huge help to reduce IT help desk costs.
Well, that's great because I hate having to call the IT help desk, and I love when there's a self-service option available. But speaking of IT administrators, so this all sounds great for the end user, but is this going to make things more difficult for IT administrators or easier? Or?
Yeah, so great question. I'll talk about three things in terms of the core benefits of why these integrations are great for IT and admins. One is just improved IT efficiency. So when you centralize management of all your apps with a single identity solution, you can really save IT time and resources. Again, instead of having to manage separate identity systems, IT can really streamline management through a single identity solution. And so using a single identity solution not only streamlines kind of the management process, but it also has just cost savings benefits. So instead of having multiple identity solutions, one that does SSO, one that is MFA, one is an adaptive access control, you can streamline it through one central identity solution like Azure AD and kind of really streamline management and save money. The other I'll talk about is just automating tasks and processes. And so with Azure AD and Cisco Webex, we also have a user provisioning integration that enables IT to automate the process of creating or disabling user accounts within Cisco Webex based on changes in Azure Active Directory. So instead of manually creating user accounts or disabling user accounts in Webex, when an employee joins or leaves our joint integration can allow admins to automate this process when changes are made in Azure AD. So this saves IT time, and it also ensures kind of the right people have access to Cisco Webex. So this is especially great for onboarding new employees or offboarding employees. It just kind of automates that process and makes it much more seamless. Finally, I'll say kind of another main benefit, we kind of touched upon this, is just security. And with this integration, as mentioned, secure remote work is top of mind. And when you use Azure AD together with Cisco Webex, you can really enable these great identity-driven security capabilities. And one that I'll just highlight is our risk-based access control with conditional access to ensure the right people have the right access to Cisco apps. And so, for example, you could require MFA into Cisco apps if a device is uncompliant, or potentially block access to Cisco apps if any authentication is coming from an unknown location or kind of a risky location. So this really kind of helps enhance security alongside all your applications and Cisco too.
Well, that's absolutely great. Well, I'm going to shift over to Mike. So Mike, besides everything that we're doing with Azure Active Directory, are there other integrations that Webex has with Microsoft 365 that enable secure remote work?
Yeah, there are a number of great integrations. I think, as Jimmy noted, it starts with a sign-in, saving people minutes at a time, which adds up into hours, which adds up to more productivity. Well, in a similar way, integrations into products like Outlook or Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, help people stay productive by, keeping everything inside of context. So, for example, you can, connect to Cisco Webex from Outlook and from Microsoft Teams. So you can start, schedule, and join meetings straight in line inside of those products, of course. As you have calendar invites, as you want to go maybe schedule something new, you can connect to those. It's right inside of Outlook and right inside of Teams. Again, those kinds of things help you get the job done of maybe scheduling a meeting that much more quickly, which, not only just saves you some time, but also will save you, breaking up your flow, right? You can kind of focus and move on to the next thing. I think the other place where there's some really great integrations is with Cisco Webex Teams. There's some connection points inside of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint so that, of course, a lot of content creation gets done for Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations. You can pull in Cisco Webex Teams. You can pull in your team right inside of, those, particular applications so that, as you're working with your team, so much of the work that we do now is collaborative. You can actually pull in the right, comments. You can pull in the right activities that maybe people are doing alongside, maybe that major request for proposals that you're working on inside of Word, for example. So, there's just this great sense that, with a number of different integrations across products, you can always stay productive.
Well, Mike, that's absolutely great. So, Jimmy, is there anything next for Microsoft and Cisco integrations that we're going to be doing with Azure?
Sure. So one of the things that we're working on the Azure AD side is just deeper integration with across Cisco's mobile apps. And so we're working on integrations that enable mobile single sign-on between Azure AD and Cisco across iOS and Android. And so this is going to enable IT to apply device-based conditional access policies on mobile devices. And so we're taking all the integration benefits we talked about, single sign-on, enhanced security, better IT management, better end user experiences, and extending that to Cisco's mobile applications.
Well, that's great. Well, Mike, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for partnering with us to help make our customer experience better.
Yeah, great work. Thanks for having us.
Thank you much. All right. Bye-bye.